Leadership Initiative webinar. And the title for today is Strategic Planning and Leadership Series for State Associations. So we'd like to welcome you all to this webinar. On the webinar with me is Kay Charbonneau, who's the president-elect, and Sharon Bonney, who's the executive director. And we also have our sponsor for today, Debbie Fawcett from the GED Testing Service, who'd like to say a few words to you. Debbie?
Thank you, Tom. And I will say, make some very brief comments, because I think the work you have to do in this next hour is very important. From GED Testing Service, I have the privilege of speaking for the company on this particular session. I want you to know how important we do believe that these activities are. We're very happy to be a sponsor of this. I think we all understand that if we're going to do the best job possible to improve the lives of our adult learners, we can help impact that by supporting our adult educators in every way possible. And leadership in this initiative, so that you can build and strengthen your state internal operations, is something we're very pleased to work with. We do believe you are the gatekeepers to work with those adult learners. Thank you very much. Look forward to listening in for a period of time, and then I will be with you hopefully on the next one. Thanks so much, guys. And I'll turn it back over to Tom.
Thank you, Debbie, and thanks again for GED Testing Service for your support for this webinar. Great. So we're going to move on to the agenda. Again, welcome. We'll be reviewing the agenda. There's going to be also a note of review of the resources available to you, next steps, and then the next webinar we have is going to be postponed until after March 13th. That has to do with budgeting. So that'll be coming out a little bit later. So next slide. Strategic planning and overview. So we are going to give you an overview of what strategic planning process is about. We've been through it with COABE 4 times now, and we've been through it at the local level, and both myself and Kay have been through that. So what does it look like? What's successful planning look like for a strategic planning process? Once you get one, what do you do with it? New tactics to implement that, and then networking, making sure that you reach out to others to support you in your strategic planning efforts. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And we want you to know that this is the mission that we came up with in our most recent strategic planning process. And a mission is meant, I looked up a definition of that to make sure I had it right. It does concentrate on the present and what you want to do now. It defines your customer, the critical processes, and informs you of the desired level of performance. So really, it did meet all that criteria. So what we'd hope to do with our mission is to inspire educators, so you around the country, so that the adults that we serve will succeed and the communities that they live in will thrive. So that really helps to drive the work for COABE. We also wanted to mention too, if you have a question you want to raise, please put that in the chat area. So Sharon will be monitoring that, and we can more easily get to those questions via chat versus the Q&A section of the webinar. So please make sure you do that. And I guess here's a chance to ask you what you hope to get out of this webinar. What do you hope to gain from being on this webinar today? And then also, what are the challenges you're dealing with? So much as you would ask your students what they hope to gain maybe from the lesson, or why are they there in your classrooms, and then what are the obstacles that they're dealing with. So here's our chance to ask you that question, and your chance to provide some feedback to us. So do we see anything, any chats, any questions? Nothing. So I'm supposed to wait. How many minutes you're supposed to wait when the teacher asks the question? There's a pause that you make sure you wait so that people can respond. Oh, there's one. Hang on, we're typing as fast as you can. There you go. That's right. you've kind of raised your hand, and the teacher is kind of waiting to call on you. So, so Connie Schreiber is typing as fast as she can. Okay, it says we want to be a strong state association, and we feel like working closely with COABE is the way to do that. Well, thank you. We also feel very strongly about that too, that we are here to support you in any way we can to strengthen your state association. And I think for some people, it's to even establish a state association. So we've been working with some states on doing that. So Kim Olson, she wants to empower more people within the state association. Okay. And I'll wait for just another few seconds, see if anybody else has anything they want to share. So empowering more people within your association is also a challenge. Strengthening your state association is also a challenge. Okay. Great. Well, I guess we'll move on, and again, keep that in mind. If you do have something you want to say to us at any point throughout the webinar, please let us know. So we have gone through strategic planning process. This is our fourth one in 20 years. I was involved with the most recent one, as was Kay. I think Sharon's been involved with, I'm not sure if all of those, Sharon, you might have been, 3 out of the 4. Okay, great. And as you can see, the what has come out of that was our new mission, which is inspiring educators so adults succeed and communities thrive.
Tom,
So we've been through this process more than once. And Kay, you want to share something?
Tom, this is Sharon. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Sharon. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to mention to everybody. So this was the oldest strategic plan we could come up with. We wanted to kind of show you the difference in 2002 when we first engaged on one of our initial strategic planning, and this is what the end result was versus the most recent one in 2014-15 that we engaged in.
So that was a trifold little pamphlet, right, Sharon, that we came up with?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, so thank you. Hey, do you want to say anything about the strategic planning process we've been through in the last several years?
Just to add that it was very interesting. I love to see this growth that we've, 2002 to 2014, a long time, a lot of water under the bridge, so to speak. But I can't say more about my personal professional growth from participating in this strategic plan. I see that some of you are asking about how do you get people involved. That is definitely something that you can sit and plan on already. So we hope to be able to help you build and solve some of the problems that we're having.
Great, thank you. Again, I see that people are saying, why should practitioners join your association? And also, how do you fill board positions? So those are definitely some good challenges, and I think we'll get back to those as we get through the rest of the webinar and talk about how you then, through the process, basically answer those questions. So, and again, I've been through this. I went through this strategic planning process with the board recently. It was a very rewarding, fruitful experience to go through. And actually what we did at the national level, I was able to bring back to the local level. And I had done some strategic planning also with staff here in my program. So it kind of informed my work here, informed that discussion, that process, and then it kind of also trickled back down to my program afterwards. So, and the thing that we were dealing with the most recent strategic planning process was the fact that we are all volunteer members of this board. And we were dealing with enormous growth in our organization. And then how do you then, both volunteers and then the staff that we had working with us, how do you deal with that and remain sane and keep your day job? And so that was our biggest issue that we were dealing with, the capacity around delivering the services we knew were important to the field of adult education. And so that really prompted us to do the most recent strategic planning process. Next slide, Sharon. And you can see we grew from 1,700 members in 2009 to now over 15,000 members. And that really has been, due to a lot of bringing on state associations and then working closely with them to make sure we can provide what they need to be successful in their state and also support their practitioners. So when you have that large growth, you have to find a way of managing the services you provide to those members. And as a result of that, I think probably the next slide would be good, Sharon. We also had to deal with handling multiple new sources of revenue. We needed to access more revenue to get the things done that we wanted to do. We needed to make sure that we could get the word out effectively and clearly to the field. And we also wanted to provide leadership and advocacy initiatives to the field. So with all the work that we decided we needed to do out of the strategic planning process, we were also able to bring on board Sharon Bonney as the executive director. She'd been involved with COABE for many years as the COABE manager, but we saw the leadership skills that she had, her drive, her energy, her creativity, and we wanted to bring that on board in a new level. And she's been our executive director now for a year and a half. Is that right? About a year and a half now. So it'll be 2 years this July. So I think it was the best decision COABE has made in a long, long time. And again, that decision came out of the strategic planning process and our desire to work with capacity issues and to take some of the burden off the volunteers that serve the board. Thank you. Next slide. So one of the things we found really important when we did this most recent strategic planning process, we really needed to honor where we came from. And so we really wanted to review the previous strategic plans to make sure that we had met the goals of those plans, that we weren't missing anything. So you have to understand, I think when you start this process, you do need to know from where you came, and you need to know your current situation in order to be able to move more effectively beyond that. So that was really important for us to honor the people and the work that it led us to where we were. And then we really needed to focus on the driving issue for us was capacity. So can't tell you how important it is to know, again, to honor where you come from. So I'm going to turn it over to Kay now for a few minutes. She's going to talk a little bit about and where you are. So here you go, Kay.
Okay. So probably the first question you would ask yourself is where are we and where do we want to be and how are we going to get there? Those are the two vital points that you will host a strategic plan. Do you have the funds to bring people in for a couple of days? A strategic plan is not done in one board meeting in an hour. And it is not done within your group. You need an outside facilitator that will help guide you, someone that's maybe had experience with this. And so, just asking yourself where you are, what's going on in our organization, are there capabilities for us to grow or start up as some states are trying to just start up an organization. And your strategic plan will lead you to how you will get there, because at that point in time you will prioritize where you are and stated in this national strategic plan. My state in Louisiana, we went through a strategic plan as well. And it amazed me how really us at a national level did not do any more than what we needed to do at the state level too. So just determining these points up front and in agreement with everybody and before you start moving forward.
Great, thank you, Kay. This was really important to me as we were discussing preparing for this this webinar. Is the first rule is to not come in with any preconceived ideas. Again, you kind of know where you've come from and got a sense as to where you want to go and maybe what some of your issues are, but you have to be open. You have to have an open mind, and you don't want to be in a position where you're leading people to the answer that you want to have them hear, or you want them to come to the conclusion about. So really, it's really important to don't go into this with a closed mind, and don't go into it feeling that if it doesn't hit certain things, then the process wasn't a successful one. So again, I did mention that we entered our last strategic planning process because we had capacity issues. That's not a preconceived idea. That was a reality. So, but we had to have an open mind about how we were going to deal with that. So, okay, next slide. RFP process, and I'll probably have Sharon talk a little bit about that. But we were able to put out an RFP to get again an outside organization to do the strategic planning for us. And it really is important to have someone outside, at least your program, to do that. I saw someone mentioning that they didn't have the funds to do a full-blown strategic planning process, but you might have someone in your community that's willing to do this pro bono. So look at that. If again, getting an outside facilitator is really, really important, so that everybody that's in the organization, that's a stakeholder, can, I guess, go through the process unencumbered and not worry about facilitating it and not being part of the discussion. So, but you do need to ask yourself who will be involved in the strategic planning process. Is it a member of the board? Is it your board only? So that needs to be discussed. How much time do you devote to this, or how much time can you devote to this? And then who will facilitate unbiased third party? It was really important when we had the last strategic planning process that the person understood us. Looked at our history, understood where we came from, understood definitely our stakeholders and the students we served. You can have a really talented facilitator, but they really need to understand, again, who you are, and then obviously where you want to go. So did you want to say anything more about that, Sharon? Okay.
I would. Can you hear me? I would say, to your point, Tom, one of the things I think we noticed is that we had 2 volunteer board members who helped out with the strategic planning process, which was great, but we realized it took a lot more time than I think any of us thought it would. So that's one thing I would put out there to you all, is that if you do hire a third-party facilitator, just understanding they'll most likely do a really professional job, but there's going to be a lot of work associated with that, like getting out emails to your stakeholders, having surveys related to the strategic planning process. So I believe we had 3 different surveys that went out, and then getting all that information in, and then the company that we worked with would cull that information and analyze it and such. But there was definitely quite a bit of extra work that I think our board didn't anticipate being associated with this. So I just want to mention that up front, that it's really helpful and it's great to hire a third-party facilitator, but there's also a lot of work too for the volunteer board going into this. Would you agree, Tom and Kay?
Thank you.
Most definitely, because as we mentioned, the time that it takes to devote to this is a couple days off work where you're all in a boardroom sitting and talking and strategizing and brainstorming and that kind of thing. So most definitely it takes dedication from your board members.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to scare anybody away out there who's thinking, like, how do we have the capacity to do this? We don't have, we don't have the money. We don't have enough board members to begin with. We're trying to build up our organization. So how do we do this? You do the best you can, and I think as long as you want to know you know where you've come from, you know where you want to go, you have the burning issues that need to be addressed. Then keeping those things in mind, you can do that with the stakeholders you need to be involved. So the next slide talks a little bit about what you need to do is knowing your stakeholders. Who do you want to be involved with this process? Who's going to benefit? Who's going to be impacted by your strategic plan? Listening. You really need to do that. And how have you determined that? Whether it's going to be through interviews, whether it's going to be through surveys, whether it's again individual interviews or face-to-face, large group discussions. You need to definitely talk to your stakeholders. This is for a lot of people, it's probably common sense. And I think for us, when we look into this, we said, yeah, that makes so much sense that we need to do that. But I think seeing this and hearing this again and again, is helpful. And I think the most important thing that we learned, I think from the last process, is that it's got to be done in a transparent, clear way. People need to know who you're talking to, what kind of questions you're asking them. The feedback that comes back needs to be shared with all those people involved in the process. It can't be something that's only for a few eyes only. So that's really important, that it's got to be done transparent, clear, and honoring that, and honoring all those people that are participating as well. Again, we have to, I'm going to go back to that for a second. And some people say, well, what do you do about someone who wants to be kept anonymous with their feedback? You need to honor that as well. And but I still think someone needs to know whose feedback it is that you are seeking, and to make sure that those stakeholders are the ones you want to hear from. So that's just important. I think people may want to keep their comments and their input anonymous, as long as they're the right people, as long as they're the people you wanted to talk to, they're the stakeholders that you hope to affect by this. So that was my take on that. Sharon or Kay, do you want to have something else to say about that, or no? No? Okay. All right.
I just think you have to be very careful. You want make sure it's constructive feedback and not feedback based on some animosity someone has toward someone on the board, or toward, if there had been in some states, I know that some organizations have tried to develop and they've not developed. And so, you need to be open-minded enough. We want you to be open-minded, and you have to be open-minded to constructive feedback. So that's also sometimes some critical, and people are criticizing sometimes. So you have to be able to determine, is it constructive feedback, or is it feedback that somebody's just trying to get back at someone? So, you have to be open enough to discuss that.
Great. Thank you, Kay. Those are good comments. Next slide. Okay. Now what? Now that you've gone through the process, have you set up a timeline with your strategic plan, with your goals and your activities? What are the priorities? And then I think for us, we knew we had to deliver on it, and we had a capacity issue. So our way of dealing with that was reaching out, hiring an executive director, providing more staffing to deliver on the promise that we made during a strategic planning process. So it's really important, to go, once you've gone through this, and again, it's probably common sense for those out there listening to this, but you've got to put it to paper. You've got to be constructive. It's got to be has some structure to it, and it has to be doable. Has to be realistic as well. I think sometimes you go into the strategic planning process and it's a pie in the sky, and you want to do 15 different things, and then you realize you're not going to be able to deliver on that 'cause you don't have the capacity to deliver on that. So then what do you want to prioritize? What's the most important thing for you to do to move your organization forward and to meet your mission and goals? So again, things to think about. One of the things that we found really important as we've moved our work forward in COABE here is that we really do run our decisions through that filter of the strategic plan. If it doesn't meet that our goals, doesn't meet our, what we decided were our priorities, then we have to put that aside for now. And it does guide what we do. It guides our discussions. It guides our actions. It's something that we actually, I think we keep it alive. I think that was really important. Strategic plan is definitely not a document that's put on the shelf and you said, great, we went through that process. We've talked to people, we've got our marching orders and everything is good. We don't do that with COABE. Again, we do filter everything through that strategic plan. And it does guide our work. And as I mentioned, the last bullet on that slide is if you don't usually change your mission and vision or your purpose, but your goals will definitely change. So you don't need to go through. I guess people are wondering whether you need to go through a mission rewrite every 2 years or every 5 years. You may not have to. You definitely look at you honor where you've come from, and you look at that. When you look back at our mission, I'm going to inspire educators so adults succeed and communities thrive. I don't think that needs to change, and it probably shouldn't. But definitely your goals and how you help your organization meet your mission will definitely be something you want to talk about, review. So, next slide, Sharon. Now what? Time, implementation, branding, and dissemination. I think that's where, Sharon, you're going to take.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
So I would just like to echo what Tom said in terms of, once you have your strategic plan, now you're at that implementation and branding and dissemination dissemination phase. Before I mentioned that, I also wanted to go back and just address what Connie and Kim had mentioned about kind of galvanizing their membership, and the strategic plan is a great way to do that. Because really, if you do this right and do it well, you're going to be constantly reaching out to your membership for their input through surveys or interviews, that sort of a thing. Your website will likely be impacted. You'll probably have more foot traffic on your website as well. So, then when you go into this next stage for implementation, branding, and dissemination, hopefully, your membership will have been kind of following you as you're going through your different phases of the strategic planning, and they've been responding to the surveys that have come out. And now they're going to see as you're implementing and you're going into the branding piece, and they'll be pushing that out to your membership through dissemination. So we talked about, when Tom Kay and I were planning this, living our plan. For us, it was a renewed focus on research, advocacy, professional development, and communication. We had found that we were really sort of maybe leaning to one side, a lot of professional development, and maybe we weren't doing so much advocacy and communication and research. So since engaging in our strategic planning process, you may have seen as members in the field, there's a much more renewed focus on other areas as well. We still have our national conference, and we're doing professional development webinars all the time. But in addition, now there's a renewed focus on research, development, professional development, and communication and advocacy. So we're really trying to live our plan. For us, branding was really important. This meant our website. We did a totally rebranding of our website. We had new signs put together. Of course, we had the plan printed, and we had new table runners because we like to be at as many state association conferences as we can. I also wanted to mention at the national conference, we had a big, huge banner. I don't know if any of you were there, if you remember, but I think it was 10 feet wide and 10 feet long, something like that. We had it up on the stage so everybody could see it all throughout the conference during general sessions. So if you have a state association conference, that might be something you want to do. They're actually relatively inexpensive, and that could even give you some various printers that might be able to help you. So if you do decide to go in that direction, typically your website, your signs, and getting your plan printed are some ways of disseminating and also via e-blasts as well. For the implementation piece, we found that we didn't want this to just be a reference. We wanted it to be a living document, so that meant we had to have baseline indicators in place, and we needed somebody to kind of act as the henpecker to make sure everybody was, all the different pieces on our volunteer board, that everybody was meeting the baseline indicators, getting the the different documents in that we needed to be able to measure our growth. So that might be something that you'd want to put into place as well.
Sharon, as you might know, that we're having a fire alarm. I'm having a fire alarm in my office right now, and so I have to leave my office. So I'm going to let you and Kay finish.
You could just mute yourself. Okay, sorry about that. So poor Tom. We'll wish him well in the fire drill. So with that regard, so we were talking about whether or not we wanted it to be a living document or just a reference. For us, we wanted it to be a living document. We wanted to have baseline indicators in place, and we needed to sort of designate someone as our henpecker to make sure all the work was getting done. So we were meeting our baselines. I already mentioned about branding and dissemination, all the different forms, the e-blast, hard copies, website design and banners. So just knowing that if this is something that you want to do at your association level, there's either going to need to be a committee or someone who's kind of devoted to making sure all these pieces get taken care of. And then on here, we were putting for the next steps. How do you take it to the next level? How can you network with other states? What are some common issues? And so we were hoping that if anybody on this webinar thought that this was something they wanted to do, the strategic planning, we could probably connect you with some other states, or we could even create a state association listserv where you could possibly connect with others and kind of share. And then also, we're here to help as well. So if there's some common issues, or if there's any way that COABE could help, we feel that the stronger our state associations are, the stronger the membership and the stronger COABE is. So we just wanted to put that out there, that we are here to help you. If you do decide to go, down this path, we could even share with you, obviously, our strategic plan and anything that you think would be of value, our signs that we created or things like that. So the next piece, membership. How do you take it to the next level, getting it out to your membership? Well, as we mentioned, you'll need to dedicate resources. You can get some help from COABE. If you send in your membership list to us, we could even help you with custom designed e-blasts. Of course, your strategic planning as well as your renewals, so your membership renewals. And then, of course, we're here to provide you marketing support as well. Before we go any further, Kay, did you have anything you wanted to mention?
I would just like to reiterate that COABE is here to help you. Sharon and her team are fantastic. They are Johnny on the spot. So if you reach out to them and ask questions, ask for support, ask for resources, we are here to help you do this. So you're not in this alone. When we did our strategic planning, we committed to the state associations because we know that our work is not supported unless we have a state level support system. So, so many times I think you feel like you're out there. I know we did in Louisiana, kind of felt like we were out there by ourselves, didn't have any help. But COABE is there to help you with your web planning if you need to, just whatever we can do to help you to grow those members. And our goal is always to have as many members because we want to be that voice for our members. So we need all the members that we can get. So we're there to help you grow your membership list as well. So, please reach out to us. I can't stress that enough.
Yes, that's a really good point, Kay. We did in our strategic planning, that was one of the major outcomes, was that we were recommitting to our state associations and trying to find ways to support them, which is actually why we're doing this, this leadership initiative. And this piece here on strategic planning will be one of many.
And we certainly hope you have seen that. And if you haven't, please let us know those kinds of things. That's how we grow as well. Remember, we're doing this on a national level, but it's the same as on your state level. So we want to meet your needs out there. So let us know.
And Kate, to your point as well, I don't know if everybody here in the audience knows, many of our board members come from state associations. So we're always trying to get feedback from them. You know, as you're sitting in on those board meetings at your state level, what are some topics and some hot areas and things we should be focusing in on? What are ways that we can support the state associations? So I would definitely say at the close of this, or even before then, by all means, let us know if there's something we could be doing differently or better. But strategic planning, we don't want to scare you off. It is a big undertaking for a state association, but at the same time, I think Kate and Tom would both agree, we've grown so much as a result of doing that. And now I think our organization looks very different than we did going into that planning. So that, you know, caused us to grow tremendously just by going through that, making some decisions that we needed to. We now have over 9 people behind the scenes working on COE related work. We have, you know, web designers, and we have IT support, and we have, you know, office staff. So there's quite a few people now it's not just one person. There's a lot of people behind the scenes, as well as our volunteer board members, as a result of that strategic planning, which brought about even more growth. So we just want to encourage you to send your membership list in. That can help us, so that if you want help getting out customized renewal e-blast or strategic planning e-blast, we can help you with that and make sure it's going out to everybody. I wanted to mention that we did have a webinar planned for the 8th of March. We've postponed that due to Trump's budget that's supposed to be coming out on the 13th. So as soon as that's released, I will reschedule the next webinar, but that will be in partnership with the state directors. We have a leadership and an advocacy initiative with the state directors. So at our next conference, which is April 2nd through the 5th, we'll have our annual state association meeting, but this year we're actually coupling that also with the state directors, so that what we're trying to do is create an atmosphere where state associations and state directors will be able to work more closely together. Our hope and our goal is that we can really help them work together, because we're all going to need to work closely in these next 4 years to ensure, you know, we're singing from the same songbook and helping each other. So at the national conference, you'll see that. You'll see us working with the state directors more. You'll see that we have a leadership initiative and a leadership strand at the national conference, which is in partnership with the state directors as well. And then we just go into our resources here. So we just wanted to stop here and open it up if there's any questions, or if there's something different that you're hoping to gain from this webinar. You know, now would be the time to let us know. I don't see any questions. I can't hear you, Kay.
My screen just changed. I was just wondering about it.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said my screen changed. I was just wondering, was that?
So for those of you who are in the audience, if you could let us know, is this what you hoped it would be, or is there more information we could share with you? Our goal was to share what our process has been like, what we gained from it, how we can help you through your process if you do decide to go down the path of strategic planning. So we do have the question about whether or not we could get a copy of the PowerPoint. Absolutely. We'll include that in tomorrow's follow-up email that will go out at 3 o'clock. And then
I think, Danielle, you were right on target. I think, Danielle, you're right on target with presenting something like this to your board, because, you know, your board has to be involved. And so, yes, this PowerPoint that you get with this would be excellent to share, get them, get buy-in from them.
And I see a note here from Jody Angelone, who is Vice President for Membership on our board, saying they didn't have funding to do strategic planning at the same level as we did, COIG did, but that they used a lot of the information from that COIG process to do a strategic plan on a smaller scale that helped their organization. So hopefully this will be helpful to your association. I would like to say that when Louisiana did their strategic planning, they reached out to me 3 times. I was interviewed by them, shared with them what I had learned. I'm sure Kay was very, much of a resource to them as well. So we're available in that way too, if that would help. Any other questions?
Karen, you see the question about tracking membership?
Yes, that's a great question. We use Salesforce. This has been just for us a godsend. It's a really great software, and because we're nonprofit and we qualify, we're able to get this enterprise version, which typically is $50,000 a year. We don't pay anything for it. But what I would caution you on is that with any database, you have to do customization, and so that's where we've gotten sponsorships to offset the customization. But Salesforce has been what we've used. Also, what we have too is we use Constant Contact for all of our e-blasts, and that's really great. You can see who's opened, who's forwarded, clicks around, which is the most popular topics that are in the e-blast. So that's what we use: Constant Contact for our e-blasts, and then Salesforce for our membership. Any other questions? I see one more here. Oh, great. Oh, seeking training. Okay, so we have a question now. Someone's asking about seeking training, fund development. We'd be happy to share with you what we know about training and fund development. For COIG right now, it's really been, we have one major funder in terms of a foundation, that's Dollar General Literacy Foundation. And the main thing I would say there is, always, once you get the funding, always get your reports in on time. Always make sure that you, on your end, that you have the capacity to fulfill those grants so that when you go back for funding, it's not a problem. But then in addition, we have sought other sources. So one thing I would just recommend that we do on our end is we work with all of our vendors. What we try to do is bring them along as a partner. Many of them want that visibility at the state level. So if you're able to, at the conference, make sure if you're a sponsor, you get visibility, you have the signs in place, you bring them up on your stage to speak a bit, they'll love that. And that's really helpful. So that can generate more. So as you have more ideas for ways we could use funding, those sponsors and vendors will typically step up to the plate and help you out there. Kay, did you have anything to add on that?
Well, not necessarily on that one. I'd like to go back to Connie's comment about Ohio, and they took on the strategic planning internally, and they feel like they have a good idea, but it's just finding time to get through to the next steps and also to create the timeline. I can't stress enough how much follow-up your membership is, how important to do that. And I know my internet connection's unstable right now. Can you hear me, Sharon?
I can hear you. Yeah, you're freezing up, but we can still hear you, so that's good.
Okay, good. But just before you even start this process, think about that and how you are going to be able to do the next steps, because follow-up, as with anything in life, anything professionally and personally, follow-up is very, very important. And I think another thing that really hasn't been brought up, it's an honor to be a board member for an organization within a state like this. So somehow, if you could build that so that it's not a chore for someone to be on the board, it's an honor for them to be on the board and to see the follow-up, how good it looks on a resume, where it could take you nationally. But use all of those to build what it means to be on your board or constituents in your, in your state. But make sure, Connie, I don't know how to help you, and I'm sure in each state it's going to be a little different, but finding that time is crucial. It is probably some of the hardest work that you'll do, but it is something that don't start it if you can't find it and can't follow through. So make sure you can do that before you get started. I know that Ohio has a plan because, you know, and we know what Jody can bring to your board because she's bringing that to our national board. So tap into your resources, Ohio.
I agree. Yes, Jody's fantastic. So as we're coming here to the end of our webinar, we just want to thank you all for taking the time. I want to stress again, we do have a state association meeting at the conference. We hope all of you will be there. You're welcome to bring more than one person. And we also have a leadership strand at the conference that we hope you'll attend. We've taken quite a bit of effort to try to pull together leaders in the field to help with that. And then you'll be seeing more webinars like this. So we need your feedback. Tomorrow when the email goes out, you'll see a little survey link in there asking you to give us feedback so we can do a better job next time around, because obviously we're sort of new at this piece of the leadership series. So if you just take 5 minutes to complete that and let us know, that would be helpful. I see that Tom Nash is back. Looking a little tanner.
Unfortunately, they had a power surge here, and it set off the fire alarm. So we had to go outside until they gave us the all clear. So it's only about 30 degrees out with the wind chill. It's not too bad.
Not too bad.
So
well,
sorry,
it's perfect.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry that you had to. I'm sure you filled in admirably in my absence. So, were there any questions or any comments we needed to address?
Great comments, really good comments, Tom. It's been some good feedback. So yeah.
Okay. So I'm looking at the chats and okay. So do you want to wrap it up, Sharon, or am I wrapping it up?
Sure. Would you like to wrap it up as our president?
Well, are we at that point to wrap it up? I guess is my question. I wasn't sure where you were in the process. So
Perfect time.
Perfect timing. Come back in. You did all the hard work. I just show up and look good, right? Yeah. So, well, thank you all for being on the webinar today. And again, I apologize for the fire alarm. You probably saw the flashing light and heard the screeching noise behind me here. So sorry about that. But I hope you found it helpful, and hope you follow up with any of us. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have about strategic planning. And again, we're here for you. So please let us know what we can do to help you. Thank you all very much.
We hope to see you all at conference.
Tom and Kate, do you want to stand for a second?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.